PR Connections Radio presents. This episode of Liberating Menopause is brought to you by Classy Communications PR and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Hi, welcome to a new episode of Liberating Menopause. My name is Lisa Vasquez. I am your host today. And today we're taking this to an important public health issue that I want to discuss today. Because through years and centuries, I guess, as women, we've always been going through a lot of challenges with our menstrual cycle, all the way down to, well, the whole reproductive system. This is a whole section of our lives, a whole big cycle. And with every phase that it runs into, now that it's becoming more of a conversation, we're opening this conversation up. And, I wanted to talk about how one section of our life echoes a systemic inequality. It's a big public issue, and this is called period poverty. Why I bring this up today is because young girls, and I thought, thinking about this, I didn't really look at the young girls' stress that they go through. I'm thinking about us women and women in the workplace and what's not happening for us or being supported, and how we really need to reach out to really open this conversation up, talking about it, because with that conversation, it leads to other people's conversation. And the bigger this conversation can grow, the more support we can have in this whole realm of our lives to make it a better future for us because of the workforce being mostly taken over by women. So I recently mentioned that I have a book coming out, and it's called The Girl in the Red. And in this, I actually bring up the issue of period poverty. So I wanted to read you a small section of that, and it's girls who cannot afford period products often miss school during their menstruations. In school, little kids are not going to be really talking about this. And it's so shameful that they can't afford products that I don't really think that they come to school telling their little friends anything about this. I've never heard of it growing up. And as I hear about it today, I am really saddened by this fact, that to think that growing up during my life, this wasn't a conversation. I mean, the products were always there, presented in my home. My mother, supported that, and my sister was there. So it wasn't something out of our reach, and it wasn't something that we ever considered wouldn't be there in our reach. I mean, it's just as accessible as toilet paper is. It was just there. And in today's world, I want to see how we can bring that into the workplace, bring that into the schools, where it's just there with no judgment, no questioning. And so in the United States, studies indicate that approximately 1 in 5 girls have missed school due to the lack of period products. 1 in 4 students struggle to afford period products, and a substantial percentage of students agree that many miss valuable school times because of this inadequate access to period products. In 2023, there was a survey, 25% of students struggled to do schoolwork due to the lack of access to menstrual products. And this led to falling behind in their studies and missing out on important educational things. Now, depending on, the income, and especially with low income, that has a big effect, and we could really have some real rock stars in those years of low income that are missing out on this educational productivity because of this poverty that they have to deal with. And as I said, women, we have to deal with that too, because there's women in period poverty. There's so much to discuss on this subject, but I really wanted to bring it up because globally it impacts 500 million women and girls. That's a lot of people missing out on so much. I mean, women are not going to go to work and express that, they're missing on any hygiene products, especially people who have their low income jobs. Those low income jobs, I mean, the annual support just for products on pads is $4,700 a year and $1,700 on tampon usage. So that's a lot of money a year. And so with the low income jobs and things like that, these girls, I mean, this has to be very challenging. But the problem that I'm bringing up is the stress that we grow up through. I thought it was really as we matured, and because we hear these words, menopause and all these different things. I mean, I think not even the best moment, because even pregnancy women, girls in young pregnancies have a bunch of challenges. But with our problems, we started from our menstrual cycle. So those challenges are growing and we evolve, and we're always in this stressed moment, and we grow into this and evolve, and there's still no light ahead, showing a lot more support. I was looking up, there are some companies that do and they're not companies that where you can work at. There's organizations that support menstrual access. That would be Freedom for Girl, number for girls, or Conscious Periods. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of period poverty, wellness, Fox here in Las Vegas. There's different forms of this support, but what is it? Why is it that we can't have this in the workplace and in the schools? I mean, in the schools, if a young lady has her menstrual, I mean, there could be a key that they can give them to have access to this if they're concerned about somebody overtaking the amount that's being given in, an open universal machine in the restroom. There could be different ways that this can be accessed and be given, but the stress that women go through starting at such a young age, and it continues and it echoes into our older years, and it's still affecting us and offending us because it's not part of the corpus wellness. They're always looking for corpus wellness. There are corporate wellness programs that are out there that they're looking now recently more to find different ways to structure more education in the workplace. And having access to these menstrual things is just something that can be put on that list of office supplies. I mean, this can be part of a title that should be accessible and be on the list every month as far as the budget, so that they can support this, because just that alone would make somebody not want to go to work, especially if they're having a heavy flow, or they're having a lot of fluctuations during that moment and they don't know how it's going to overflow. Young girls, they don't even have a real form of this cycle yet, so they're a little devastated, just realizing that here it is again, and it's another month, and my family can't afford it, and now I'm not going to school again. And these little girls are probably people that a lot of little girls really want to go to school, and it's a bummer that they have to miss because of this. But it all starts there. And so by talking about this and bringing up how we can help change this cycle for women, there's got to be a better way to bring a brighter light on this conversation, because it's our biological process. I mean, it's just like going to the restroom. I mean, it's just what we do as women. And it's only for that one section of our lives, our reproduction, our reproductive system, that part of our life. Once it ends, I mean, of course, we walk into other challenges because we're on a new level, but the stress of being in school and being at work and dealing with these pressures, waking up in the morning knowing that, wow, should I call in, or, how can I make it through? What if I can't, supply myself with something that's going to help cover me up. These are questions that are going on because it's period poverty, and everybody, we all have to think about that. But as I was saying, being young, these were not conversations or any thoughts that I had to consider. So it's sad to see the challenges that are happening today. And as I talk about my book, Girl in the Red, it's geared for young ladies when they start their menstrual cycle. I'm educating them. There's a lot of content that I'm giving them because I really want them to get the big picture. When you can plant those seeds, bring it in young, maybe those young little girls are going to be little inventors of something and help us change this once they get all this education and see. Because once we can learn how to run with our hormones, working with that system flow as it develops through the phases that we have to go through. And there's a better understanding that this can be balanced if we bring in the good nutrition. You know, if conversations in corporate worlds were more on nutrition, sleep, having meetings on these sessions just to discuss them, to make the awareness and let the employees know that this is being considered and we see this happening and we really want to support you. And in school, I mean, you know, a long time ago in kindergarten, you'd have nap time, and I don't think little girls get that anymore. But it's really important that these subjects and conversations are talked about so that we can help grow a new community of young ladies growing into this a lot stronger, a lot more empowered, because the more empowered they are, the stronger they'll be as they develop in all these phases, because they're going to know what they're navigating through on these pathways, where as we never knew. I mean, doing the research for this book was very important for me to be able to bring this education, but the things that I discovered and found out of what the body's actually doing at that time is really some deep information. And so at the beginning of the book, I introduce you to the stars of the journey, and that's just waking you up with the hormones and talking about them. It's a very exciting introduction that I'm so excited just because of that. I'd love to give you more on that subject, but the introduction is just so beautiful, and these stars, your hormones are talking to you, is going to be crazy good for young girls. You know, there's navigating the waves of womanhood, the power of menstruation, a journey of empowerment and understanding, a blossoming girl. There's so many good conversations with mothers and daughters. And at the end of this whole story, what I geared toward bringing together is the mother and daughters, bringing them back together in this conversation once they understand what it is that was really pulling them apart, because we need to have support everywhere. And this goes into where my next book, when that one comes out, takes you in the ages of 15 to 25 to show what kind of support we need. But for us to understand this as women, having the support of our boyfriends, fiancés, husbands, all those different kind of supports, just like having that conversation with our mother and knowing she was going to be there to help us, knowing that if we bring this conversation to our male partners in our life, they're going to have a better understanding and they could give us more nurturing, because going through this alone, we've been doing this for centuries, but we have found that with that community and support and more understanding to get through this passage that we have to go through, especially when those fluctuations are bringing in mood swings, or, you know, later on, those hot flashes that will continue. I mean, there's so many broken relationships that come through this because, you know, unfortunately, he can't take it anymore, or the woman, she can't take it anymore herself, but she can't walk out of her own body. It's something we have to deal with. But by changing the conversation, empowering it, and bringing in the importance of, as we go through this phase, understanding the healing process, if we start to nurture ourselves in that way, embracing our bodies and loving our bodies for doing what they're doing because they're all on track. Just like the minute that menstrual cycle kicked in, the body came together, the brain, the receptors was stimulated, and it was time, and it happened. And this is everything that is a proud moment in a woman's life, not a shameful one, because it's showing that your clock is on time, your clock is walking you through it. Everything is all in the sections that they need to be, in the timing of your life, in the years and phases of your life. They're all activated. I mean, there are those, unfortunately, that do not get a menstrual right away. And so young little girls, they're sitting there waiting, wondering, their little friends are having this conversation and they still did not get it yet. I mean, they could come by 16. Latest is usually 19. Normally, this usually comes more with people who are very active in sports and lifestyles under a certain weight. That weight has a big, it's like a balancer in our lives. And if you're not at the right weight, that can obstruct you receiving your menstrual cycle. And again, so when you go into those next phases, there's always something that's producing that phase to get you through that phase. As the pregnancies, hormones come in, and now the baby's being created, it's all part of the body's beauty that works inside that you don't even know. I mean, as I was saying, doing the research on this book, seeing, growing up, as we seen our menstrual come and go, all we thought was it was a moment, right? We were bleeding and it was over, and now it's over and here we go. But honestly, you never really heard or seen or understood what the body was still doing inside. Next thing you knew, you heard about ovulation, okay, if you count those 14 days. But to understand the knitting and the little tiny things that the network and that system is doing to put all that together to make sure everybody's on time. It's just an amazing concept, amazing workings that our bodies go through and what they do. So instead of being upset with it and getting mad at it because we're having, a bad period or things like that, as I was saying, some people, it's a big interruption in their life. It's really in their way and they're not happy with it, And this is another part of the conversation I want to change because of that negativity. When that flow comes in, it must be more damaging mentally because of the anger that you're having with your own self, that challenges against yourself. When, it's something that's embraced and looked at in a different way, which I hope in my book comes out. This conversation is going to be going on in schools. Little girls are going to be, hey, did you read chapter this or chapter that? Did you see this? I have a PowerPoint that goes with it that even gives really cool illustrations and takes you inside the body, and very consciously for my little tweens, because I really want them to get the picture and not intimidate them. I really want them to understand this because this is a whole beginning. And when you can feel and understand that foundation, gosh, you just build on it and build on it. And you make sure that you incorporate the correct things into what I call that new structure of the building that you're creating, this new home in your life, by putting in that nutrition, by putting in your sleep schedules, by shutting down that blue light, by exercising and keeping movements. Nobody brings this up. And again, I know that we have a big, strong obesity problem with young children, and that again goes through a lot of process and unhealthy foods. But by learning about the nutrition and things that I want them to understand, they're going to have a better choice to understand what they're doing at the time of their menstrual. They have their own little minds, and sometimes they'll know that, hey, I'm not supposed to eat that. The book said I should have something like this. So when they're in that school line, they just might make a better decision. But again, it goes back to the schools and the corporate world of supporting the nutritious food lines for us, or even the snacks. Oh my gosh, there's so many snacks that come into the workplace and they're all just pure junk food. And because people are hungry at that time, of course, it's a quick fix, but they're not looking at the accumulation, what it's really doing to the body, and how temporary fix it is, but really no nutritious value. So learning to do all this stuff, little girls, again, that emotional health. Women, we think about ours, because we have a bigger voice as we get older to talk about this mental stress, but our little girls are going through that same thing too, because they're sitting in their room when they first get their menstrual cycle, thinking about, this is happening right now. Does anybody know? Is everybody watching me? Did I stain my clothes when I get up? There's so many little stressors on their little minds. Besides, they're about to take a big test and they have to focus on that, which meant last night they had to study for it. But they were kind of nervous because they just got their menstrual cycle. So there's a lot of emotional stressors and challenges that, little girls, they need to have those little empowerment sessions where they get together and have a conversation with the teacher, with somebody in support in that school, to open up this conversation to see. And maybe they do need some kind of time out for 10 minutes or something, but it's just something that we need to learn to start organizing, to bring in more comfort for us, to have more access to these products, to what was I going to say? Sorry. Having access to these products and making sure that it's more of a comforting flow than a challenging flow, because the biggest thing is we grow up with this, we know what it's like, but as a young girl taking it into the workplace, feeling the stress, just knowing that you can't get away to go to the restroom right now when you really need to, knowing that, how do I flag the boss? How do I get to do this? Or I'm having bad cramps. Now I have to bring that up. I'm having a headache. I mean, all these things really do take a toll on girls, and they have to deal with work, and we have to go through all these financial changes, because if we miss work and we're not getting paid for that time off, that really has a big effect. And depending how many days that you have this discomfort, you could have it long days, long weeks. I mean, everybody fluctuates differently. So today's conversation was all about this journey that I wanted to have us really embrace and talk about, because the conversation is more than just preparing the period poverty or menstrual. It's about breaking the silence. And breaking the silence again in the workplace. If nobody's really complaining about bringing these issues up in meetings, I'm sure that you have office meetings and stuff, things of that nature that can really help you raise the conversation in that meeting, talking about it. Is anything that can be done? Because it's our voice. It's our voice that needs to echo loudly as women and support each other and bring this up, because there's a lot of us that are sitting there and we didn't know that we can actually bring this up and talk about it, and somebody might reach back out. But today, because the conversation is so widely opened and everybody's listening and women are our focus, because it's time for us to have our wellness brought into the workplace, giving us more in the treatments of being studied and understood, how these hormones are changing us and what their effects are. We've already seen how women keep going through these moments. And as I told you, there's so many women that have retired and didn't even know they walked through it. There's so many of us that go through it and never talk about it, but we've arrived, and it's kind of making it to that safe line. You've finished, you're happy it's over. But as I said, hormone deficiency is a long-term deficiency. I mean, it can end. Women in their 60s and 70s still report getting hot flashes. So even though it ends, all of a sudden, sometimes it can come back. It's a long-term hormone deficiency that we're born with. It starts on a full tank of gas is what I would call it, and it just keeps on going and depletes. And this is why when we empty out our egg basket, that part of the cycle ends, and now we're running on different hormones to help sustain us to finish the long run that we're journeying through in our lives and growing up in. As we mature and go into that ageless life, that journey of our retirement and enjoying time off and having that as a moment of fun and relaxation and new discoveries for our future of what we really want to do with ourselves. That's the new adventure. But a lot of people are blurred from that vision because sometimes the life is so complicated with illness and they're so broken that that's not what they see long term. So I bring these conversations early to you, looking toward like the 35-year-olds and up, as I was discussing, because the more you can check on yourselves, the more you can correlate yourselves with what your hormones are saying, noting all those little hints of small pains, joint pains, small little headaches that were never there before, differences in the change of your flow. There's all kinds of little signs, but it's starting to recognize them. Even the way some of this flow comes out, it has different colors. And in the time when we were young, we didn't know any difference about that. But actually today we know that it has a different color because it's telling us something different about the hormones that are having an effect on us at that moment. There's so much to know about this. And so again, by bringing women into this conversation with their little girls and women just in women, having this conversation, reading this book, understanding it, looking at this, you will have some aha moments because there's so many different things that we didn't know, different parts that have names that we didn't know that were just there. But and it's so interesting and exciting, and I'm hoping that we can really change the world and create a better workplace and school life, because this is what's going to strengthen us as we grow and develop to go into those workplaces. And as we enter into those workplaces, today, empty nesters, people who are returning back to the workplace or leaving workplaces, they're all in search of who is supporting this phase and stage of my life, because they don't want to return back and find out that they have to deal with all this while they're under the 8-hour constraints of whatever the management details are that they're working under. This is a lot for us to really think about, and really women want to really grow this world. So we need to help really raise and grow women. And this is what my health conversation is all about, bringing in, highlighting the urgency for the need of policies to change, but mostly, like I was saying, having on the list of supplies that are brought for that department, if that can be one of the included supplies, just to have some of those products on the list. I know it would change the atmosphere, because this is a silent problem. Just like the whole menstrual cycle is a silent problem, but period poverty is not something anybody would ever talk about or bring up or even want to have anybody acknowledge that they're lacking any supplies. And our little girls that are going through that, it's really hard because they don't know mentally everything that's happening to them, let alone that this is something that they can't support for themselves. They don't even know, so they make up different things, they use different things, and those are the dangers that can happen because of the infections that can be brought into this area that is very important for us women. So I really, again, just wanted to just talk about this universally, breaking down the silence and dismantling all these stigmas, because this is what this whole new generation is all about. Recently, I was actually talking to this young 21-year-old, and I was really happy to hear her conversation, because she was telling me how she's actually seeing a psychiatrist for her self-discovery, because she noticed, she's 21, going on 22, but she's noticing these stressors, and she also noticed how she wants to start working on her mind building now, so that it doesn't erupt into anything bigger than this for the little stress changes that she's going through. And I was so intrigued with that conversation to hear that, because when I was 21, 22 years old, I don't think I was thinking anything about that. I didn't. It's a fast life. It's a growing life. And where I grew up, I had a lot of party life, fun life, career life. I started my career when I was 20 after I graduated X-ray school. So, I had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of excitement and things. So you don't even think about that. So to hear her, but this is in today's age, right? This is 40 years later. She's telling me this, and I thought that was so cool. That was so cool that this girl can have more conversations with her friends to let that out, to let people know that going for that type of self-help is not meaning that something's, very wrong with you. It's so confident building, it's character building, and that's what she wants. She wants to try to catch these things now before they erupt into something bigger. And this is the whole goal of teaching all this, bringing the understanding, so that as we walk through this, you are understanding all this, because we can change it as long as we can cut it off before it grows into something more. But the first step to all that is really recognizing that this is, our wild and wise moments, and we have to be able to express this by understanding and sharing all of these conversations, because again, I told you, culturally we're all differently, so if you're in your same culture and you're talking about this, you could have a lot in common, and knowing that certain timings come at that certain time for that culture, and in just universal conversations with women, because it's a universal conversation, you could exchange different insights of what your culture comes from, because there's so many different cultures that grow up with this. And this will be something we'll talk about next time, about what each culture did. And did you know that in some cultures back a long time ago, women were, how would I say it? Because they if their menstrual lasted longer than the first 5 days, they were really sentenced to higher penalties in their life for bleeding more than that, because now they're being considered as being more wicked. And, that the sight of this issue really was devastating. The culture changes, what you can touch, what you can't touch during this time. It's so interesting, and it's so important. And again, it's just so important for women to understand that it's out there. We know it's out there. I want to be here to talk about this. When I walked and talked with all those women, I wanted to amplify voices for them. I wanted to speak on their behalf because of the pain that they were in behind closed doors that nobody was listening to. And as I developed in this conversation on this research, trying and working to reduce the stigma. As I said, we have a long way to go, but every day that we talk about this and we create a bigger piece of this canvas, and we start eliminating a lot of dismantling all those myths and stories that were shameful, and opening them up to empower women and bring this light that we carry very bright, instead of putting the shade on it and dulling it out, because that takes away who we are. And we need to shine bright to light up this world, right? I mean, the power is in us, and we have the minds, the body, and we have the creativity, because of the instincts that we carry in all 5 phases of our lives, that really empower us for those after those years to walk into this new world of wisdom that we've carried through all that, because we've gone through challenges, and emotionally we're ready to really deal with a lot. So I want to thank you today for joining me on this episode. Soon I'll be giving out the date when my book will be released. It's very close, and I'm excited about this. I want to thank you again for listening to prconnectionsradio.com, Liberating Menopause. Lisa Vasquez, your host, giving you informational and educational information on women in the workplace, talking about the cycles that we go through and the challenges we want to break through. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.